In this video, we're going to discuss whether it's better to have your podcast delivered to YouTube via an RSS feed through a hosting platform, or if it's better to directly upload your podcast into YouTube itself. You have both options, and let's talk a little bit about the differences. So, a podcast, whether you're doing video or audio, typically you want it to distribute to multiple places and apps. So, for instance, if I have a podcast, which I do, called the Just Trust Me Marketing Podcast, I would love it to go out on not only YouTube, but I'd also love it to go out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, because obviously a lot of people ingest podcasts that way. And whether you are doing audio or video, people will still listen to audio even if they aren't seeing the video. Anyway, that's a whole different video. What we're talking about, though, is getting a podcast onto YouTube. One of the methods you can use is via RSS feed. So if you have a podcast hosting platform, and you can Google this and you'll see a bunch of different options: Libsyn, Spotify for Podcasters, Buzzsprout, Podbean. You can set up a show, and basically what that platform does is it hosts, it saves, it stores the actual files of your audio file or video file of your podcast. But it also lets you set up all these settings: title, description, is it explicit or clean? What's the cadence of your podcast? What topic is it? Is it business? Is it entertainment? Whatever. It lets you set up all these things in there. Plus, a lot of them do analytics. One of the things that it also does is it says, hey, upload your episode here into the platform. I will push it out anywhere that you want it to go. One of those destinations is YouTube. So in YouTube, you have a couple of options. All right. So right now we're looking at my YouTube channel, but wait, there's more. And I have a few podcasts on it, actually. And we're always building and trying to provide a lot of different ones, creating a podcast network, if you will. But let's say if I wanted to create a new podcast, I'm going to hit the create button. And you have to do this if you have admin rights on a YouTube channel, whether that's a manager or an owner. And it says I can select a new podcast. Now, notice that your options are: you can either create a new podcast, and that just means, hey, I'm going to create a new podcast on this YouTube channel. You can set an existing playlist as a podcast. So maybe you've done a series of videos on YouTube that all kind of follow the same theme. You're like, oh my gosh, this would be a great podcast. You can actually set that playlist to be your podcast. What'll happen is that'll make sure it gets listed under podcasts on your channel. Now, the other option you have, and this refers to what I was just speaking about, is submit an RSS feed. So if you think about it, RSS feeds have been around for tons of time. People have subscribed to RSS feeds when you subscribe to a blog. And every time a new blog hits and you get an automatic email from that blog linking you to say, hey, go read this new blog, that's an RSS feed. Podcasts work the same exact way. RSS feeds are basically a constantly refreshing feed that will go drop the new episode on whatever destination app you have selected from that platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts. Now, if you are in your YouTube channel and you're like, yes, I have a podcast I'm hosting on a platform, I'm going to submit the RSS feed. There's a difference with how it delivers to your channel versus if you just are manually or creating the podcast on your YouTube channel. And I want to talk about those differences. So we're going to go into the Just Trust Me podcast because I think this shows it really well how this works. So I'm in the podcast details. Again, I'm in the studio, so I am managing this. I want to see all the podcasts I have that have been added to this podcast over history. So I'm going to click on videos. Now you're going to see something a little unique here. A bunch of these look like, hey, it's a landscape, obviously a visual of thumbnail of the podcast, but it's a square visual within that. Versus this particular video where it's filling the whole screen. This is where the difference comes in. And I'm going to go ahead and just click on this particular podcast. When you are using RSS feed to populate your podcast into your YouTube channel from an external platform, this is how it's going to show up. What it's going to do is it's going to grab the square thumbnail, and you have to use a square show cover, episode cover in all podcasts. If you think about it, if you go scroll through Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, what shape are all the thumbnails or the cover art for all the podcasts? They're square. And that's what those platforms require. So what it's doing is it's grabbing that square visual and saying, great, this is the visual for the podcast that you're dropping into YouTube. You sent it via the RSS feed. Now, even if you have uploaded a video episode into that hosting platform, the video is not going to follow the podcast to your YouTube channel, only the audio. So if you are using RSS feed to get your video podcast over to YouTube, you're going to miss out on showing that video to your YouTube subscribers and the podcast subscribers on YouTube, because it's only going to bring over the audio, and the only visual people will see is this thumbnail. Now, let's go backwards a bit though, because you have an option also in your YouTube podcast to manually upload. And that's what happened with this particular video. So I had done an interview with a therapist in the Denver area as part of a marketing therapy offshoot of this podcast. And so if I click on the settings here, you can tell that it actually is a video. So if I bring you over and I will share the tab where the new video is shown, notice, and then I just went and fast forwarded to one portion of the video, I can actually see the video and it's showing me the video content of the episode rather than just a single. And you can see even over here on the right, here's the audio version only. It's just a thumbnail. So you have a few more options that when you manually upload into YouTube than you would if you do the RSS feed. Let's go back to my other tab and I'll show you what those differences are. So for the one I manually uploaded, I have the option of adding chapters to this YouTube video. You do want to use chapters, especially if you're having a longer video, because you always want to give people the authority to choose their own adventure on when they want to ingest your YouTube podcast video, regular video, whatever. And because of that, I went ahead and added these chapters in there. Now, you can try that by adding those chapters over in the podcast platform where the RSS feed is going to then ship this over to YouTube and see if they carry over. But you have way more control. The other thing you have more control over are the settings, because when you're talking about, and I'm actually going to back out of this for a moment, we're going to do the one that's brought over via RSS feed. So I've got some options in here. Also, one thing that happens, you can see that sometimes the description comes over a little interesting. It's adding spaces everywhere. That's weird. So I can add chapters here. You can change the thumbnail and that's fine. You will get an alert if you make any changes, like say to the title or anything over here. It's going to tell you that's going to break the RSS auto feed from the platform that's external. So if you make changes in here, that's not going to backtrack over back into the platform. Also, if you made any episode updates, let's say that you had an advertisement in that podcast and you stopped working with that advertiser, now you had to update the video and update it in the podcast platform, that is not going to reflect automatically over here on YouTube. Now, if someone were to ask me, Rachel, what do you think is better? To let an RSS feed from an external podcast hosting platform send my podcast over to YouTube for me? Or do you recommend manually adding each episode to YouTube? I have a caveat to my answer, but I think it's going to greatly depend on if YouTube is one of your main channels for marketing and bringing in leads. If it's not, I would absolutely go the RSS feed. Here's the caveat though. YouTube is freaking fantastic for using for your marketing, and you should absolutely be including it as much as possible and wherever possible. Here's why. People are ingesting video. And Google is still a mighty search engine. Granted, we have a lot of people who are using AI nowadays to search. And so large language models, if you've heard of LLMs, that's what that stands for. They're asking AI, they're asking Gemini AI, they're asking Perplexity, they're asking Claude, they're asking ChatGPT, hey, where can I find a podcast about this topic? And so that kind of thing is obviously getting served up via large language models or AI. However, Google has AI. Do you still search for stuff on Google? You probably do. And it will generate for you AI results. Guess what it's prioritizing? Video. If your video in any way answers a question that someone is asking Google, and then it's using Gen AI, generative AI, to answer that question, and it says, oh my gosh, there's a video right over here that I can pull on and serve this up as the answer, it's going to use video. Way less than it's going to use a blog. And I know that's traumatizing for everyone who is used to traditional SEO, but that is the way things are as of this is June 10th, 2025 at 4:25 p.m. Mountain Time. This could change, obviously. But that brings me back to my recommendation. Maybe YouTube is not a main channel in your marketing. Okay. If you're doing a podcast, get it out there on Spotify and Apple. Those are two awesome platforms. And as long as you're doing new content, you're winning the day over there. But why aren't you using YouTube? Go ahead and add YouTube in there. Why not? I mean, it's only going to help you to also have a YouTube channel where you're sending that podcast out to also be able to fill those search results when people are searching for that topic. But if YouTube is a main channel for you, absolutely do manual. I know it's more tedious. I totally get it. It's worth it though, because as we mentioned, people are ingesting things in different ways. Absolutely be using YouTube. One other piece of advice, be making clips that can go in your YouTube shorts and publish those regularly. YouTube shorts is driving traffic and adding discovery so much, like on an exponential scale versus just posting videos to the normal YouTube feed. I can't even quantify it. It's wild. Like, for example, on one of my podcast channels, I actually will post a short and it will get 1.8 thousand views within about a few days. Whereas if I post or live stream one of my gaming videos, that might get 20 views. I'm just saying. And I'm not saying that's across the board, but you should absolutely be posting clips of your podcast to YouTube Shorts and anything else you use. All right. That's all for this video from But Wait, There's More. A little advice about putting your podcast on YouTube and how you manage to do that. Please let me know if you have any questions. Please let me know if you have some other topics about marketing, podcasting, anything you'd like me to post a video about. I'm happy to do it. And please remember to go ahead and subscribe to any of my podcasts too. I've got a ton. I've got ones, whether you're into nonprofits who are doing really good work, whether you're into marketing, whether you're into gaming and entertainment. And if you are interested in being part of the But Wait, There's More podcast network, let me know. Give me a shout out. Have a great day, everyone. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video.